Billy lives in a small town with his mother, Mrs. Johnson. She works as a teacher at the local school, and Billy attends kindergarten there. One day, while Billy is playing in the park, he meets a talking rabbit named Benny, who tells him about a magical garden hidden behind the playground. Benny explains that the garden is full of colorful flowers, sparkling streams, and delicious fruits that can only be found by following a secret path. Mrs. Johnson is delighted to hear about Billy's discovery and agrees to accompany him on his adventure to the magical garden. She cautions him, always remember what your mother tells you. Do not wander too far, and come back promptly after we visit the garden. Billy agrees with his mother, but Benny suggests that he take a closer look at the secret path before they begin their journey. As they walk along the path, Mrs. Johnson points out different animals and plants, explaining how they contribute to the beauty of nature. Billy is fascinated by the wonders of the natural world and listens intently to his mother's explanations. After some time, they reach a clearing with a large tree in the center, and Benny tells them that this is where the garden begins. Inside the garden, they find vibrant flowers of every color, sparkling streams filled with fish, and delicious fruits hanging from the trees. Billy and Mrs. Johnson enjoy their time exploring the garden and thank Benny for showing them such a magical place. However, as they are about to leave, they realize that they cannot find the path leading back home. Mrs. Johnson reminds Billy of her previous advice, always remember what your mother tells you, and encourages him to think carefully about how they can find their way back. Billy concentrates hard and suddenly notices a small pathway hidden behind a bush. He excitedly points it out to his mother, and they follow it until they reach the playground. As they walk home, Mrs. Johnson praises Billy for being a responsible and attentive child who always listens to her instructions. Billy is thrilled to have discovered the magical garden and thanks Benny for showing him such an amazing place. From that day on, Billy and his mother visit the garden often, enjoying the beauty of nature together while following the secret path to their hidden paradise. Throughout the story, Billy's obedience and attentiveness are emphasized as essential qualities for a well-behaved child. The magical garden serves as a metaphor for the wonders of nature and the importance of exploring and appreciating the world around us, while always listening to our parents' guidance.
What did Benny tell Billy about the magical garden? Benny told Billy that the garden is full of colorful flowers, sparkling streams, and delicious fruits that can only be found by following a secret path. Why did Mrs. Johnson agree to accompany Billy on his adventure? Mrs. Johnson agreed to accompany Billy on his adventure because she was delighted to hear about Billy's discovery of the magical garden and wanted to explore it with him. What did Mrs. Johnson point out to Billy as they walked along the secret path? Mrs. Johnson pointed out different animals and plants, explaining how they contribute to the beauty of nature. Why was Billy excited to discover the small pathway hidden behind a bush? Billy was excited to discover the small pathway hidden behind a bush because it led them back home safely. What did Mrs. Johnson praise Billy for doing at the end of the story? Mrs. Johnson praised Billy for being a responsible and attentive child who always listens to her instructions.